We haven't talked a whole lot about CBS All Access. And what's funny is uh, news outlets don't talk a lot about CBS All Access in the context of the streaming wars. They're often very excluded from coverage of the streaming wars, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. So this is a Business Wire article. It says CBS All Access adds more than 100 films from Paramount Pictures. New additions to CBS All Access film library include The Godfather trilogy, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and more. And I believe it includes most of the Star Trek feature films as well. Also included here, it says Airplane, First Wives Club, Pretty in Pink, To Catch a Thief. It says yes, and along with additional films in the Star Trek franchise. So I'm not sure if you were aware of this, Dave, if you've been taking advantage of this at all.
I was aware of it. I was actually in the movie library last night or night before last taking a look because I'd heard some talk that they had added a bunch of films in because they didn't have a very super deep roster of films. And I always thought it was weird, too, that you could actually see more of the Star Trek films on Netflix, or you could see actually more of them on Crackle, or you could see more of them on Name Your Service, Amazon Prime, than you actually could on CBS All Access. I thought that was really strange. But they do have more of them added in. There's quite a lot of great films actually available now on CBS All Access, which is pretty cool. I'd been kind of poking around, seeing what was in there, and kind of identifying some things that I think I might like to watch. I don't know if we're necessarily going to cover any of those films in a retro review here on the show, but they have added quite a bit of content, and I have been looking at it. So
I did want to acknowledge that Joss is taking off. He says, got to go, guys. I have an early conference call tomorrow morning. Thanks for the show. We really appreciate you coming out. You're a very loyal viewer of the show. So, hey, you got to do what you got to do. Remember, you can always watch the repeat, though. And I also, on the YouTube, I will split the show into sections and things like that. But you can always view it again on Facebook. It's always there, the entire show. So we appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. And
yes, thanks, James. And like I said, the sketch card packages from the previous winners, James is one of those, that should be going out this week. Again, I apologize for the delays. I've just been having some issues getting into the post office with everything that's been going on, but should be going to the post office. If not today, not today. If not tomorrow, it'll definitely be the next day. But I'm pretty sure I'll be hitting the post office tomorrow. So
awesome. Now, one of the other things about this is interesting. There's been a lot of talk of rebranding CBS All Access to basically ViacomCBS. And of course, this seems like it's the first step to do that by including the Paramount content within CBS All Access. They're getting that whole, Viacom and CBS back together. And so there's a lot of talk of rebranding, that they're going to be coming out with an all new version of CBS All Access. It's going to be ViacomCBS. So it's going to have things from, like, say, Nickelodeon, MTV, other content that Viacom owns. So that's kind of also part of this. And I think this is the first step to doing that, is including the Paramount library in the CBS All Access service. What do you think about that, Dave? As far as, have you heard these rumors that they are going to revamp CBS All Access as ViacomCBS to kind of get all that content together?
Yes, I've heard that as well, and that would make sense. It does kind of belittle all the time they've spent branding the CBS All Access, but that's
but I'll mention
sometimes.
But I'll mention, as I said before, the coverage on CBS All Access is pretty weak, in my opinion, because I'm out there always hunting for articles and things like that. And when you see these big streaming wars articles, they hardly ever even talk about CBS. It's like they're not even a factor.
No, yeah, and that's kind of been, that's been kind of like a thing. They haven't really been covered very much, but I think there's so much going on in the world of the streaming wars, to be honest. There's so much to cover, unless you are breaking something truly interesting news-wise. when they had Picard running, they were getting all kinds of coverage and people talking about things, and people wanted to talk to Patrick Stewart and whoever else, and so they had something kind of CBS All Access has the same problem I think a lot of the streaming services have at the moment. They just don't have anything new, interesting, or hitting at the moment to really keep people paying attention. And I brought that up before. I mean, for example, like the way they were talking before is by the time Picard was going to start kind of getting towards its end, I was thinking that season 3 of Discovery should be hitting, or maybe they would have something happening with Lower Decks. Like one of the other shows would be, ready to roll. And right now, all CBS All Access has going as far as Star Trek goes, it's just, rumors and news items. I don't know if you saw it, but there's I was trying to find it actually on my phone and I can't find it, but there was a news story about one of the actors from The Mandalorian. I don't know if it was the kid who played the gunslinger, but one of the actors in The Mandalorian is actually being eyed to possibly play and I'm not sure this is a good idea. Let me put this out there right now. I don't think this is a good idea. To play a young Jim Kirk in the Pike show that they've been not supposedly doing. That there's
really?
some casting.
I hadn't heard that. Wow. I hadn't heard that rumor.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea, by the way. I don't think
I think it's a terrible idea.
Again. And then it gets even more confused because the rumors is right now that the Pike show is tentatively titled Enterprise. It's like, well, you can't call it Enterprise. You've already had a show with Scott Bakula called Enterprise. You can't do that again. And I don't want them to act like Enterprise doesn't count just because someone wants to use the name. Well,
they kind of have acted like Enterprise doesn't count.
But see, it does count. It does count.
But as far as New Trek is concerned, it really doesn't. They've contradicted a lot of things in Enterprise in Discovery.
That's true. I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see. But all I'm saying is that as far as new content goes, there's a couple of different shows that are airing on their regular CBS network that you can watch on CBS All Access. My wife watches Survivor. I've been kind of curious about what is it, The Good Life or whatever it's called. There's a couple of different things on there, but they just don't have a lot happening.
Yeah, I would agree.
And so I think part of the reason they're not being reported on is they're not making any real moves. It seems like I was under the opinion that when they got back together with Viacom that things will start moving forward. But it seems like since they've got back together with Viacom, it's like, okay, what are we going to do? And they're still trying to figure it out because at one point they were touting themselves as like the Star Trek. Well, they're still doing it right now. They've got those ads running where they're the Star Trek hub. I think Star Trek is their big thing that they're using to bring people in. But I'm just still surprised. It's like they said that we were not going to go through these long droughts between Star Trek shows. I can't remember if they said that at Star Trek Vegas or somewhere. I remember reading an article where they said that they were fixing that problem and they had their pipeline in place. Whereas one show would
have not fixed that problem.
No,
I think that was the idea with the short treks. The short treks were going to be able to bridge the gap in between shows, and that just hasn't happened. That just has not happened.
There's nothing happening right now. All they have going on the Star Trek side right now since Picard ended is rumors and casting rumors for a show that they haven't even really announced they're really doing. That's what they've got going. So the fact that everyone else isn't reporting on them, I'm not surprised. In addition to them adding to their movie catalog, I did see some reporting about the positive reporting about what they're doing with their live sports. Now I have seen some of that where people are talking about that once the sporting events, start back up again, because they were showing some live sports that a lot of the other services don't really have available. So there's that. There was a lot of touting about that. So I don't know. We'll have to see. But I think CBS All Access isn't getting reported on a lot because they're not doing a lot. I mean, I know they have active shows in production, but those are on regular CBS. and you can also watch them on CBS All Access. It's not like they're original. They had that interview show. I think they were hoping that would break bigger than it did. And my wife and I watched a couple episodes, but it just didn't catch us. It just didn't. I don't know. It just didn't hook us.
I'm not even familiar with what that show is.
I think it's called Interrogation. And it looked interesting.
Oh, yeah. I've seen the previews for that. Yeah.
It looked interesting, and we tried to watch the first couple episodes, and you're supposed to be able to watch it in any order or whatever. I don't know. It just didn't work. It just didn't work for me anyway. So we watched a little bit of it, and then we just never went back to it. I think besides Star Trek, I've watched more Price is Right on CBS All Access.
Price is Right. Hey, that's a good show, man. That's a good show. I watch Price is Right sometimes, but I usually, when I watch it over my antenna. I don't use CBS All Access. In fact, I've mentioned that with Star Trek, I usually watch it on Heroes and Icons over the air on my antenna. I usually don't watch Star Trek on CBS All Access. In fact, other than Picard, I haven't watched any Star Trek on CBS All Access. I am interested in watching some of the movies. I would like to rewatch some of the movies. In fact, that might even be good for us as far as the show to review some of the other Star Trek films. So I've been thinking about doing that, and I'm glad that they have this content on CBS All Access now. But I want to mention, as of yesterday, this feature was not working on the PlayStation 4 app. The movie section is still empty because there's always been that movie tab. And of course, you click on it and it was empty. On PlayStation 4 as of yesterday, it was still empty. They hadn't updated the app, which I think is ridiculous. You know what I mean? That they haven't updated that so that I can see the movies on my big screen. I can see them on my computer if I want to, but I don't like watching movies that way. You know what I mean? I don't like to watch movies or I could Chromecast, I guess, from my computer. But yeah, I don't understand stuff like that. It's really weird. And then, had you heard the rumor reported by Midnight's Edge that Netflix is looking to acquire ViacomCBS? Have you heard about that?
No, I'd heard something. I'd heard something similar about something else, but I hadn't heard that specifically.
That's from Midnight's Edge. They're the only source that I'm familiar with that has been talking about that. But there's been a lot of rumors that Netflix is in talks to acquire ViacomCBS because they are in bad financial shape. Really, really bad financial shape.
You know, I hate to say this, but that would explain why there was no Star Trek show ready to go when Picard ended. They might have spent what they had trying to get Picard done. And then, you know, there might be production issues, you know, with Discovery Season 3. And that's what they've been working on Discovery Season 3 so long. You'd think it'd be finished by now. But it would make sense if they're having issues wrapping post-production, you know what I mean, for whatever reason, it's possible. It's possible. So.
Yep, well, I would say so. It's interesting. It's something I'm going to keep an eye on.
Yeah, talking about the investing angle before, we did spend like half a second looking at Netflix, and the value of Netflix is so high. It's like, I don't ever see myself owning any Netflix stock.
But maybe look at that Viacom stock, right? I'm looking at it because Viacom stock isn't that expensive. And so that's something to consider out there. If any of you guys use eTrader or however you might acquire stocks or things like that.
Play. I hadn't thought about that.
It's because I'm thinking about it. I'm definitely thinking about getting some ViacomCBS stock because if Netflix buys it, oh man, that stock's going to go, you know? So.
Yeah, it will. It will. That's for sure.